At 4:17 p.m. on a quiet Thursday, Daniel Brooks's phone lit up with an unknown number. He almost ignored it. That decision, the kind we make every day without thinking, was the first small hinge that swung a very large door. On the other end of the line was a hospital, the word accident, and a sentence that split his life into before and after. This is a true-to-life story about how one day can break your heart and still plant the seed of everything you will need to go on. It is about a father, a daughter named Lily, and strangers who become a family because of choices made in courage. It's about the way a community shows up when the world falls down, and how hope often arrives dressed as ordinary kindness. Keep watching, because a letter Daniel almost threw away will unlock an unexpected twist. And the woman who receives the gift of sight will step into Lily's life in a way none of them could have planned. The day began the way good days sometimes do, so normal it almost felt like a promise. Daniel made pancakes shaped like stars because Lily, 8 years old and gap-toothed, believed star-shaped food tasted better. His wife, Anna, laughed at the mess of flour on the counter and left him a note by the kettle, back by 5. Save me 1 star. Anna worked at the public library 2 towns over, where she ran Story Steps, a reading class on an old wooden staircase that creaked like a friendly door. She walked to the bus stop with her scarf tucked into her coat, waved from the corner, and that was the last image Daniel would carry of her for a long time. Scarf, smile, sunlight across her cheek. At 4:17 p.m., as Daniel was editing photos at the kitchen table, the call came. The emergency room nurse spoke clearly, as if placing stepping stones across a fast river. Your wife has been in a collision. She is being treated. Your daughter is here and safe. Safe felt like a rope tossed from shore. The rest of the words, they were water. Here is how you move through those first hours, step by step, when you don't know how to move at all. First, shoes. Daniel stood up and found he'd put on 2 different ones. He didn't correct it. The body knows what matters and what does not. Next, neighbors. He knocked on Mrs. Green's door and asked her to keep an eye on the house. She put a hand on his shoulder and said, "Drive carefully, dear." Then, the drive. A song came on the radio he could not bear, and he switched it off but kept hearing it anyway, inside his chest where the rhythm felt like panic. At the hospital, the corridors smelled of coffee and something metallic, maybe the tang of disinfectant, maybe fear. He asked for Anna and Lily. A volunteer with kind eyes led him to a small room where Lily sat on a foam chair swinging her legs. She ran to him and said, "I'm okay, Dad," and he promised out loud to no one in particular to be grateful for that every minute for the rest of his life. A doctor came in and took a slow breath before he spoke. People who give bad news learn to breathe that way. "Mr. Brooks," he said, "we did everything we could. You learned how short a sentence can be and still contain a universe. There is a kind of work that comes after a loss like this, the most exhausting work there is. First paperwork, then phone calls to family, then 1,000 small practical tasks that feel like standing in the rain trying to fold a wet map." Daniel learned the names of forms he never wanted to know: release, certificate, authorization. He picked out a photograph that looked like Anna but not like death. He tried to explain the word funeral to a child who wanted to know if it was like a birthday party where people bring you cards. Neighbors arrived with casseroles. The doorbell rang so often that Daniel unplugged it and set his phone to vibrate. When he slept, he dreamed the terrible dream of remembering and forgetting over and over. In the dream he would find the kettle note by the stove and think, "Oh good, she's coming home," and then wake and find it was true in paper and ink but not in the way that mattered. 2 weeks later, when the first storm of paperwork had passed, Daniel did something small that would matter later. He opened Anna's email account. She had told him the password years ago for emergencies, and found a folder named Story Steps Ideas. Inside was a half-written message addressed to the principal of a struggling elementary school. The subject line read, "Library Garden Proposal." Anna had wanted to turn a strip of dirt behind the school into a reading garden, a place where children could grow beans and stories at the same time. At the end of the draft, she had written, "If I get distracted, remind me to plant marigolds first. They keep the beetles away." That night, Lily asked, "Do marigolds keep sadness away too?" Daniel said he didn't know, but it was a good experiment to try. The first unexpected letter arrived on a Monday with a postmark from the State Transplant Network. Daniel had forgotten that on her driver's license, in the organ donor box, Anna had checked yes. "In accordance with your wife's decision," the letter said, "2 people have received the gift of sight." The names were not included, privacy rules draw compassionate borders. But the fact glowed like a candle in a window. Somewhere, someone was seeing clearly for the first time in years because Anna had chosen a quiet kind of courage on an ordinary day at the DMV. This knowledge did not fix anything. It did not stitch the world back together. But it gave Daniel a new sentence to say when the old ones collapsed: "This is not the end of Anna's story." If you are watching this during your own season of loss, here is what those first months taught Daniel, information that could help. Grief is not a straight road, it is a weather system. Some days are heavy fog, some are sudden thunder. Tell 2 people, only 2, to be your call anytime list and actually call them. Keep a notebook by the door for the tasks people offer to do, let them sign their names next to the help they promise. And when you can, do one solid thing for your body every day: drink water, walk to the corner and back, eat something simple. These are not cures. They are anchors. One evening in early spring, Daniel and Lily stood in the hardware store staring at packets of seeds. "Marigolds," Lily said, practical as a scientist. In the checkout line, a woman bumped Daniel's shoulder and apologized. Her eyes were a clear blue, and the way she tilted her head as she listened to the cashier seemed practiced and new, as if she was learning to map a world with more detail than before. Daniel thought nothing of it, except later, when everything made sense. He remembered her earrings, small silver leaves, and felt the prickly certainty that the story had been trying to introduce them and he wasn't ready yet. Weeks later, a second letter would arrive, and this one would not be from an office. It would be written in a hand that had learned how to write again. It would begin, "Dear family, I do not know, I think I owe my mornings to your kindness." Spring unzipped into summer. Schools closed, the town parade shuffled past, and Daniel woke one morning with a task that felt like permission. It was time to begin the garden. He called the elementary school Anna had emailed and asked to speak to the principal. "My wife had a plan for your back lot," he said. "I'd like to finish it." The principal, Miss Turner, paused and then said, "We wondered who Anna Brooks's family was. Her proposal made its way around every desk here. If you are willing, we would be honored." Saturday became garden day. Volunteers showed up with shovels and knee pads and the kind of jokes people tell when they are trying not to cry. Lily wore a sun hat too big for her and handed out lemonade. Daniel planted marigolds in bright rows, and Lily drew labels on popsicle sticks: beans, tomatoes, hope, spelling that last one slowly so she wouldn't get it wrong. Halfway through the morning, a woman arrived carrying a flat of seedlings. Silver leaf earrings flashed in the light. "I'm Emma," she said, "a music teacher at the community center. I heard you needed extra hands." She moved carefully, placing each seedling as if it were an instrument with a fragile neck. When she knelt, Daniel saw a thin scar near her temple, the kind that might be from an old accident or a new surgery. There are moments when the camera of a life story zooms in so close you can hear the breath before a word is spoken. This was one of those moments, but they did not yet know it. Emma returned the next Saturday, and the one after. She taught Lily a song to sing to the seedlings, because if anything grows faster under a child's attention, it is a plant. She laughed easily, but sometimes she would look out across the beds as if searching for a horizon she had recently learned to see. On a Wednesday in July, the second letter arrived. It was in a plain envelope with a careful script that made every letter a small ceremony. It read, "Dear Brooks family. I have been trying to find the right words for weeks. The truth is I have been practicing writing again because something miraculous happened. 3 months ago, I received a corneal transplant. The world that had been mist and shadows is now a bright, detailed book. I can see leaves, not just trees. I can read music again. I am a teacher, and I cried the first time I wrote the words, 'Good morning,' on the board and could see the chalk dust sparkle. They tell me the donor was a woman who checked yes. I do not know her name, only that she was brave on a day when it was easier not to think about it. Please know that every time I look at the sky, I say thank you. With gratitude. Emma Hill." Daniel read the letter twice before he understood that the name at the bottom was the same as the woman with the silver leaf earrings who now came to the garden every Saturday. He looked over at Lily practicing her song quietly in the living room and felt the strange combination of terror and awe that comes when a story folds closed and opens again as something larger. He walked to the community center where Emma taught and waited until her class ended. She came out, wiped her hands on her jeans, and smiled. "Daniel," she said. He held up the letter. "Is this you?" Emma nodded, tears sudden and unembarrassed. "I didn't know how to find you. I wrote to the network, and they must have forwarded it. I never thought," she didn't finish. "Sometimes the truest sentences are the ones you can't say all the way." They sat on the steps and talked for a long time. Emma told him about the slow dark of her eyesight fading, the tired kindness of friends who drove her everywhere, the way she had been learning to memorize rooms. She told him about the morning after surgery when the nurse pulled back the curtains and the world had edges again. "I didn't know green had so many kinds," she said, laughing through tears. It was like someone turned up the volume. Daniel told her about Anna's library classes and the kettle note by the stove. He told her about marigolds and how Lily had made a label that read hope in shaky block letters. He did not know yet what this friendship would mean, only that it felt like standing at the edge of the ocean and being unafraid of the size of it. In September, the Story Steps Garden held its first harvest day. Children came with baskets, parents came with questions, teachers came with recipes. There was a table where you could learn basic first aid and CPR because Ms. Turner said, a garden should grow safety as well as tomatoes. Daniel held a clipboard and signed people up for a weekend training at the firehouse. He had learned, painfully, that ordinary preparation can be a bridge in a crisis, knowing how to call for help, how to keep emergency contacts in your phone, how to speak to a child honestly about scary things with simple words and open arms. The garden became a place to practice all of that, to grow food and community at the same time. Lily found a small dog hiding behind the compost bin, a nervous mutt with one ear folded down like a polite hat. She named him Scout. When she brought him home, he circled the living room and then lay down on Anna's favorite rug, as if to say, I know where the heart of this house lives. Scout became Lily's best listener. She told him secrets at night and took him to the garden every Saturday where he supervised the beans. The twist came, gently, on an ordinary afternoon. Emma had been giving Lily free violin lessons at the community center. Lily was talented in the way that children are when the thing in their hands makes them forget to be afraid. After a lesson, Emma knelt and said, I have something I want to ask you both. She pulled out a small framed picture from her bag, a photo of the reading garden proposal printed from the email Anna had once drafted, the one Daniel had found. Someone had added a line at the bottom, in memory of Anna Brooks, who believed stories grow best in the sunlight. I would like to start a scholarship, Emma said, for kids who can't afford music lessons. I want to call it the Anna Scholarship. Will you help me? Her voice shook, but her hands were steady. Daniel felt the floor tilt into a new balance. Yes, he said. We will. By winter, the scholarship had funded lessons for 12 students. The garden slept under straw. On the first snow day, Daniel and Lily made star-shaped pancakes and left one by the kettle, an old ritual, now a prayer and a promise. Outside, the town's lights seemed brighter. Inside, the house felt like a book where the sad chapters did not erase the joyful ones. They sat next to each other on the same shelf, each making the other more real. If you are here for knowledge as much as narrative, here are lessons the Brooks family folded into their days, small steps that turn grief into a school of compassion. Keep a help chain, contact list. When you can't hold your phone, someone else can. Learn basic first aid and CPR from your local firehouse or community center. Skills you hope you never need can become a gift you can give. Speak to your children in simple sentences, and listen twice as much as you talk. Plant something, even a pot of herbs on a windowsill, because growth is a daily teacher. And, if it aligns with your values, consider becoming an organ donor. A yes on a form can become a morning for someone else. On the anniversary of the day everything changed, Daniel and Lily stood in the garden at dusk. Emma tuned Lily's violin and nodded for her to begin. The notes rose clear into the evening like birds finding their way home. Daniel slipped his hand into his daughter's free hand and felt, at last, the gentle shape of a new beginning settling into place. Not the life he would have chosen, but a life full of meaning he would choose again, one small, brave yes at a time. This is a story about one terrible moment and the 1,000 good ones that followed, about how a checked box, a packet of seeds, a letter, and a circle of neighbors can take a family's broken pieces and make them into something strong enough to share. If this reached you, take one step today. Call someone who might be lonely, sign up for a class that could help in an emergency, plant something you can tend, write a letter you've been meaning to send. Tell us in the comments one small action you will take this week to honor someone you love. Your single act may be the hinge that opens a door for somebody else. Moral of the story. When life breaks, kindness mends. Small, brave choices, made on ordinary days, can turn loss into light, grief into growth, and strangers into family.